This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
They have kicked, jabbed and choked their way through all the challenges the pandemic has thrown their way over the last 18 months. And now Mixed Martial Arts Organisation One Championship is set to stage one of its biggest events ever when 1X takes place at the Singapore Indoor Stadium. Hi, my name is Sazali Abdul Aziz from the Straits Times Sports Desk, and with me on this episode of ST Sports Talk is Chatri Sityodtong, the Chief Executive Officer and founder of One, and he'll talk about 1X and the fight he's most looking forward to and what lies ahead for his organisation. Oh, and we also asked him how real the Chatri we saw on the Apprentice actually was. Hello, Chatri, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, obviously busy schedule, to speak with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. And maybe you can start by just sharing how 2022 has been for you so far. You know, are you happy with the number of events One has staged so far? You guys have been very steady. You know, every couple of weeks. It's almost like pre-pandemic levels of staging events already for One.
Yeah, no, definitely. 2022 looks to be a record year for One in terms of revenues, in terms of viewership numbers, in terms of number of events and everything else. Just from what we can see today, we've had some huge wins internally we haven't announced yet. So it's just been, I would say the company morale is at an all-time high. We just been doing some really, really exciting stuff. Just in January, we closed the largest deal in the history of the company. It's an 8-figure deal, multi-year 8-figure deal. You know, so it's just been tremendous for us to close a single deal like that large. And I think, you know, now everyone can visualize, you know, 9-figure deals and the like. We've achieved, global scale. I mean, if you look at the Nielsen Industry Report from last year, we're top 10 in the world as a media property in terms of sports or viewership and engagement numbers. If you look at Facebook's data that came out a few weeks ago, we're number one in the world out of 5,000 sports properties on Facebook in terms of organic video views. So our fans are speaking loud and clear all over the world. And of course, you know, the events are back. And, you know, knock on wood that COVID doesn't throw a wrinkle in everything, but so far, so good.
That huge January win, as you said, you know, has that been officially announced? Is that going to be announced soon?
I believe we're announcing this month. I believe it's going to be announced the next couple of weeks. We're just working with our partner on the press release and a few other logistical things like the partnership kickoff and stuff like that.
All right, nice. And is 2022 also the year, you know, One expands back into the Southeast Asian region and maybe even wider Asia? Because I know obviously you've been almost restricted to Singapore shows over most of the last 18 or even 24 months. But do you have any dates or any venues in mind, Bangkok or anywhere else?
So we have booked dates and events and venues in different countries already. But again, everything is touch and go. And I think this highlights why I'm so full of gratitude and appreciation to the Singapore government. In the last 2 years, they've really leaned in. The Singapore government has leaned in and trusted One to continue live events. Of course, we were the test in terms of setting up the COVID protocols for large-scale events. And knock on wood, we've done a great job as a company, as a team, without any outbreaks. And that I'm very grateful to my team for, and I'm very grateful to the Singapore government for allowing us to continue events, all throughout these last 2 years. Yeah, full of gratitude. So, you know, every government has a different protocol and different, ruling on how it's treating COVID. So that's what makes it very tricky for us is, of course, we would like to continue our events again abroad the way we have. But right now, we've booked events in different countries, but we haven't committed yet.
Sure, I understand. And but one event you're committed to, of course, just weeks away, arguably One's most exciting card ever, 1X. So many intriguing fights for all types of fight fans. What's the one bout you're most looking forward to and why?
I'd have to say Angela Lee versus Stamp, Fairtex. That one is the most exciting for me. I think the other really intriguing one too is Rotang versus Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah.
I think both those fights are going to give our Singapore fans a tremendous treat, but also our global fans around the world. They're going to see something very spectacular and special. For Angela versus Stamp, I think it's a very intriguing battle. And the reason why is, Angela's coming off a 2-year hiatus from motherhood. And will she have the edge that she used to have competitively? Will her skills still be there? Will her desire to win still be there? These are big, big question marks. Once upon a time, Angela was a young teenager with all the hunger for her dreams in the world. Today, she's a mother. She's highly successful, lots of money in the bank. She owns her own home.
Her own gym.
Yeah, and her own gym. So you wonder about how much of a fire does she have left? She's achieved a lot, obviously, for a young age. On the flip side, you have Stamp, who is very hungry and won the Atomweight Grand Prix, went through everybody. And she is Angela Lee's most dangerous opponent ever. And the reason why I say that is Stamp is a much, much better striker than Angela. But Stamp also has tremendous athleticism and balance and strength all in her favor. And her takedown defense is outstanding. So in terms of a stylistic matchup, this is the worst kind of matchup for Angela in Stamp. Now, of course, Angela is a world champion, and she's a world champion because she's overcome many, many different types of opponents and situations and whatnot. So you can never underestimate Angela's world championship spirit. At the same time, though, Stamp is the hungrier fighter. She wants what Angela has. She wants to break out and make the kind of money that Angela has been making. She wants to, claim her stake on the throne as the first three-sport world champion in history. And one other thing, too, is Stamp really, really, really wants to prove to the world that she is the greatest atomweight in the world. So there's a lot of different storylines, even within this one fight. So it's just one of these crazy, crazy fights that a moment in history. I think it's going to be a tremendous treat for everybody.
Yeah, and it just so happens that that could well be the one event that has the most number of spectators since the pandemic began. I spoke to the Sports Hub Chief Executive Officer Lionel Yeo a number of weeks ago, and he said, and Sports Hub were in talks with obviously the government and the authorities about having a larger number of fans back inside the indoor stadium for that one. Have those details been firmed up? Do you have a figure in mind? 6,000, 8,000?
So we don't have a figure yet in mind. We're still working with the government, but we have been selling tickets very briskly. At the current pace, the event will be sold out in a matter of days. But the capacity still remains about whether we will be allowed to release additional seats. It definitely won't be the entire stadium just because of COVID protocol and safe distancing. So, but we will, yes, this will be the largest spectator event since the pandemic for all of Singapore. Well, there's no doubt on March 26th, but the question is how big. I can tell you it's going to be in the thousands. I just don't know how many thousands yet right now.
Find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or via the Google Voice Assistant and Amazon Alexa-enabled devices. And now back to our podcast episode.
And now, back to our chat with One Championship CEO and founder Chatri Sityodtong. Let's take a step back. Did you do any, stock taking for 2021? Obviously a difficult year, challenging year, as it has been in 2020 as well. What was the biggest learning point for you and the biggest positive takeaway for you?
Yeah, so for 2021, One achieved record revenues, record viewership numbers, record social media metrics, all the major KPIs. We hit new highs, record highs. So from that perspective, I'm very happy. But of course, we were not operating in full capacity just because everything was stop-start with COVID. It's incredible. My team is genuinely the greatest team in the world. Their warrior spirit, resilience and grit, creativity, just to be able to throw events last year was very difficult. And so it's a huge bonus that we hit record highs in revenues, viewership, and all the other metrics I look at. And obviously we hit also a record level valuation last year, having closed our latest funding round. So all these different things were, I would say, made 2021 an outstanding year. Could it have been better if there was no COVID? Of course, definitely. And so all things considered, the fact that we have grown continuously throughout these last 2 years during COVID, all the key KPI, all the key metrics, for me, that is a testament to how amazing my team is. And I'm very grateful to serve the greatest team in the world.
And one of the factors I would say for that growth would be the Apprentice One Championship edition, and that wrapped up in 2021, and then it streamed on Netflix, obviously very popular in Singapore. What was that whole experience like for you? And is it what we see, what we get with Chatri? Was that Chatri that people saw on the show, the same Chatri talking to me today?
Yes. Well, that's the funny thing. Before we shot the show, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, mind you, so there was no vaccine yet. And this is, again, why I'm so grateful and full of appreciation to the Singapore government. Not only did they allow live events back, they entrusted one to come back, but they also entrusted one to shoot, a global international production in Singapore in the middle of the pandemic with no vaccine yet. That was already in itself an impossible feat. And the fact that there was no outbreak just shows you how strict our protocol was. But I got a lot of advice before the show. Internal stakeholders, our marketing department and whatnot, advice, our shareholders and external experts that told me, Chatri, you need to show only the nice side of Chatri, or, you need to be a gentleman or whatever it is. And I had a lot of conflicting advice, and people even wanted me to dress up a certain way. They wanted to give me luxury clothes and, fit the image of a CEO. And the night before the production began, I just said, screw it. I don't want to listen to anybody. I want to be myself. And so you saw everything on the show. You saw my temper. You saw my harshness. You saw the negative sides. And hopefully you saw my leadership style as well, and my business approach. But yeah, it's just real. Yeah, what you saw on the show was the real me.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, probably one of the reasons people tuned in was because, they got to see the real side of you, and a genuine side of you. Can you share, are there plans for season 2 of The Apprentice?
Yes, we are working on season 2 as we speak. We haven't kicked off yet on production. We're deciding which country to shoot it out of right now. That's where the season 2 is about right now.
Could it be in Singapore still?
Most likely not.
Sure. And in 2021, you also had that big Turner deal, one on TNT in the first half of 2021. Did that achieve the target you had of, showcasing one to a North American audience? And will we see one on TNT in 2022 as well?
Yes. So we're going to announce our biggest broadcast deal in history in the next few weeks. So just stay tuned, for the U.S. market. It will be a spectacular announcement. Please stay tuned.
Is it with Turner as well, or
I can't say. I can just tell you that it is a major broadcaster. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's a globally renowned broadcaster and company and brand. It's going to be our biggest announcement in the history of the company.
All right, but looking back at those 3 shows, or 4 shows rather, one on TNT, obviously there was some controversy with some of the finishes and so on. But like I said, overall, looking back, did it have the effect that you wanted? Did it leave the impression that you wanted on the North American fans?
Yeah, I think that's why we have the biggest deal in history, our U.S. broadcaster that I'm going to be announcing the next few weeks. I think without our primetime live experiment in the U.S., we would not be sitting on this deal that I'm about to announce. Again, in the next few weeks, I'll be announcing it, and it's a game-changing deal for one.
Mm-hmm. A couple of the fighters who featured on those cards, obviously big names, Mighty Mouse, Eddie Alvarez. I'm just wondering, when you signed them, back in late 2018, that was a huge statement of intent for one. Unfortunately, of course, about 2/3 of their time in one so far has come during the pandemic. Do you feel you can still get the most out of them, going forward, and how?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I really, truly believe that one has the greatest athlete roster on the planet. I would put our world champions against the world champions of any organization, any global organization. And I've always, called out for a one versus UFC mega global event, champion versus champion. I'd love to do that. And this is, I'm speaking as a lifelong martial artist, not as some fan or some businessman. I do martial arts. I've been practicing martial arts ever since I was a little kid. I train every day, 5-6 times a week, and it is my greatest passion in life. And I can tell you, just looking at the roster, I would tell you we have the world's greatest roster in MMA and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and in kickboxing and all the different arts.
All right. And last question. We still have 3 quarters of the year left, 2022. What's the main goal you wish to achieve? What's the main target you have with after 1X, of course? You said there's a couple of big announcements coming up. Beyond that, what's your biggest target for the organization?
I think we're going to hit record again. Right now, from what the plans we see, we're going to see significant revenue growth to record high levels again, breaking records. Viewership numbers we expect to break a new high again this year. We're off to a very strong start on social and digital platforms already far exceeding our last year first quarter metrics, triple-digit percentage differential in terms of growth rate versus last year already, in terms of just all of our metrics. So I think 2022 is a real major inflection point for One, and I hope for the return of normalcy for the global economy. And if that happens, then One will, most certainly have its greatest year in history by a large margin.
Yeah, and let's hope that normalcy comes back. So that's all the questions we have for you, Chatri. Thank you once again for your time, and we wish you and One Championship all the best for 2022 and beyond.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and take care.
That was a podcast by the Straits Times. Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or via the Google Voice Assistant and Amazon Alexa-enabled devices. For more podcasts by the Straits Times, the Business Times, and Money FM 89.3, you can also download the Audio by SPH app. That's AWEDIO.